in the horror genre. I'm your host, Nicole, and it's time to share another dark tale.
Hello, friends and weirdos, and welcome to the October episode of Light and Shadow. This is it, the big show. Today, it's just me, and I will be talking about one of my personal fundamental frights, Creepshow. But before I get into that, I wanted to take just a few minutes to talk a little bit about a couple of things that I've seen recently that I just really loved. And just buyer beware, because I do not have notes on this. This was sort of a last-minute addition to the show. This is just off-the-dome thoughts. So I've been on a little bit of a Stephen King detour kind of since the summer, and it's funny how things come in patterns. So I was doing Summer of the Stand along with the Losers Club, and a bunch of other people I know did it, and then I wanted to do Creepshow for this episode. I was invited to talk about Needful Things on Straight Chilling. So there's been a lot of Stephen King kicking around, and that's not uncommon because the man's work is everywhere. But I've been on like an extended Stephen King detour, and part of that is the fact that there are two King adaptations coming out this fall. One is The Long Walk, the other is The Running Man, and it's very interesting that those are both Bachman books. If you're familiar with the Bachman books, or if you're not, Stephen King wrote as under a pseudonym for a while, and Richard Bachman. He was outed as Richard Bachman around the time Thinner came out, so The Long Walk and The Running Man, when people first read those, they thought they were Richard Bachman novels, did not know it was Stephen King. And the Bachman books all have a little bit more of a sci-fi, dystopian, pulpy, hard-edged feel. They're not straight horror, but include horror elements. And I was never really interested in reading the Bachman books, but I had heard people raving about The Long Walk. Some Stephen King fans consider The Long Walk to be their favorite King novel. And so, of course, I had to check it out. Read it a couple years ago and liked it just fine. But then whenever I heard they were doing an adaptation of it, I thought, well, this could be really interesting because it is different. It's not straight up horror. And I was interested to see, what that would look like. And so I reread the novel in preparation for the movie and liked it more on a second read. It's I'm not going to go into spoiler territory here, but the concept of The Long Walk, if you're not familiar, is we don't know exactly what's happened, but it's America at an unspecified time, and the country is in economic hard times, and every year they do this competition called The Long Walk. And young men, we don't know exactly what age, maybe like 18 to 24-ish, there's 100 of them in the book. In the movie, it's 50 of them. They come and they walk until there is no one left. And you have to maintain a pace of 3 miles per hour. If you drop below 3 miles per hour, you get 3 warnings. And if after 3 warnings, you're not back up to pace, they shoot you. And so the young man who is left, who is the last one, in The Long Walk gets an unspecified prize. And so it's just an interesting book. I really like a character study of how these young men relate to each other, what the dynamics are with the friendships and the frenemies and all of that stuff. And also, it's interesting to just see kind of what each one's motivation is. Like, why are you choosing to do this? Because the chances are that you are going to die. There's like a 1 in 100, or in the movie, 1 in 50 chance that you will live. It's very slim chances. So clearly it's desperate times. But so that's a really interesting concept. But the story is just young men on the road together. That's it. It's a one setting. And so you wonder, like, how is a filmmaker going to make that interesting? Will they do flashbacks of the characters' lives and cut back to being on the road? What will they do? How will they keep it interesting? And The Long Walk has been kicked around here and there. Different filmmakers have had it. Andre Overdahl had it at one point, which I was really interested in his take on it. He ended up not doing it. So it ended up being made by Francis Lawrence, who is the guy who directed Constantine, which I personally loved, and written by the same guy who wrote Strange Darling, and his name is escaping me. J.T. Mulner, that's his name. So he's kind of up-and-coming horror writer-director. And the trailer to me looked promising, and so I took a chance to and invited David to come along because he's not a horror fan, but there are certain things that I think he'll be interested in that I will invite him to join me for. So he came along for this one, and when we got out of the movie, he expressed that he really liked it. So that made me happy. But to me, The Long Walk is maybe my favorite thing I've seen this year. I thought it was very well done. The characters were great. The acting was great. They made changes that were appropriate and, to me, did not lose any of the meaning of the novel. So for me, I would say please check out The Long Walk. I think it's very interesting. Again, it's not straight horror. But it's a ride. It will take you on a range of emotions. It'll make you chuckle. It'll make you cry. It'll make you feel devastated. And I just really appreciated that. It was a ride in the movie theater. The ending I'm a little torn on. It is different than the ending of the book, which I respected because, those who have read the book, we know who wins The Long Walk. And I wondered, will they change it so that even if you've read the book, you don't know what's coming? And I won't spoil whether they changed it or not, but I will say the ending is different than the book in some ways. And I'm not 100% sure how I feel about it. I think I need to watch it again to get a read on it. Especially, this is a story that's, I think, very relevant to our current times. And so just due to the social and political nature of our times, I'm not sure what the ending has to say about that. I'm not sure. This may be a little bleak for me. So anyway, I need to revisit the ending, but regardless of whether or not I like the ending, it is definitely something that is worth your time. So, I don't think it's in theaters anymore. You'll have to wait for streaming. But please check out The Long Walk. And then, this does not seem like a King property, but it's King adjacent to me. And, so it's a movie that I did not see in theaters. I've heard buzz about over the year, and that is Bring Her Back. I've heard nothing but great things about Bring Her Back, and, I've heard kind of how disturbing it is, and so it recently came out on HBO Max, so I put that on the other night, and I try these days to sort of take rave reviews with a grain of salt, because you just, you don't want to be let down. And so I sort of avoided as much information as I could. I don't think I even saw a trailer for this movie. I've just seen that poster, which is very striking. But someone did mention to me that it's got Pet Sematary vibes. And with the name of the movie being Bring Her Back, I think we can all sort of like suss out where this movie is going. And I was just delightfully surprised and impressed by this movie. It was made by the Philippou brothers, who also did Talk to Me, and I thought Talk to Me was fine. It didn't blow my socks off. It was a visually striking movie. It was an original story, but didn't blow my socks off. So I was very interested in what their, kind of next movie would be. And I think Bring Her Back is better than Talk to Me. I know there are varying opinions about that. But for me personally, like this subject matter and this execution just really, really worked for me. And I just kept thinking, I mean, there are other things to glean from it, but me being such a King fan, I just kept thinking, this is the new Pet Sematary adaptation we deserved. If you've been listening to this show for any amount of time, you know that I love Pet Sematary. It's my favorite novel. I love the 1989 version by Mary Lambert. That movie, has a little bit of camp to it and a little bit of silliness, especially viewing it in modern times. But it's still a very kind of disorienting, surreal, pretty scary movie, I think, still. And then the 2019 version of Pet Sematary, I appreciated that they sort of like swung for the fences and made some changes and tried to make it their own. But ultimately, that movie just fell pretty flat and did not convey the just grief and dread and seriousness of the book. And I feel like Bring Her Back really hit on the major disturbing themes that we read about in Pet Sematary. And so again, I'm not going to do any spoilers for Bring Her Back, but I will just say that it is very dark, but I think it earns it. I mean, I really love a bleak movie that's not afraid to go there when it works for the story. And in Bring Her Back, it really works for the story. So like I said, it's on HBO now. You can stream it. And if you're into the darker stuff, I say do it. Go down that road.
You want to watch out for that road.
So, keeping with the Stephen King detour, let's dig into the task at hand today, and that is Creepshow. Creepshow is important to me. It's a fundamental horror movie for me because it has become a crucial part of my spooky season tradition. I cannot remember when I started doing this, but Creepshow is the first movie that I watch to kick off spooky season. And I've been doing this for maybe 10 years now. I used to kick off my Halloween viewing on October 1st, and I have since kicked that back to September 1st. I feel like I really love having a full 2 months of reveling in the Halloween season. And I think that Creepshow is a great choice for that because it's a very fun movie. And it doesn't feel 100% like fall just yet because, September a lot of times still feels like summer. It's the end of summer. So you're not fully in the fall vibes yet. In Creepshow, while there is a segment that takes place on Halloween, there's a jack-o'-lantern in the window, we also have, a range of settings, including a beach setting. So it's a really good transition in both tone and atmosphere, I think, to take us from the end of summer into fall, into spooky vibes. And I usually ask my guests, when did you first see this movie? And Creepshow is one of those that I cannot remember the first time I saw it. I would assume probably on TV, as a kid, as a teenager or something. Creepshow is one of those that I've just always been aware of the references. So it's hard to know, what was me just being aware of the movie versus actually seeing the movie. And like I said, I've watched it now probably at least a dozen times. And I really like anthologies a lot. They can be hit or miss. And I think Creepshow is probably the best horror anthology. It is like the quintessential horror anthology. So without further ado, let's really get into it. Let's get into Creepshow.
Coming soon. Jolting tales of horror. Creepshow. From the author of Carrie, The Shining, and Cujo. and the creator of Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead. You'll scream at ghastly ghouls, cringe at weird kids, and shiver at the doings of evil doctors.
This is going to be extremely painful, Mr. Verrill.
Creepshow will grab you, grow on you, and give you the creeps.
No, this is going to be an entirely new experience.
Creepshow, the most fun you'll ever have being scared.
So I think what makes Creepshow possibly the best horror anthology, it's a lot of things. I think it's pitch perfect. As I mentioned, the tone of this movie is great. It takes itself seriously when it needs to, but it's not afraid to have fun. It's not afraid to be a little silly. And part of that is that it feels to me very DIY, handmade. The hand-drawn comic strips, the creeper, clearly somebody crafted him. The color effects, like that lighting looks almost like theatrical lighting. You get these, the color shift during key moments. We go from like, oh, it's just normal lighting to all of a sudden it's blue and red and it looks very graphic. And very intentional, very surreal. That's such a specific and effective choice. The cast in this movie is just insane. We've got Ed Harris, Leslie Nielsen, Ted Danson, Adrienne Barbeau, Hal Holbrook, E.G. Marshall, Fritz Weaver, who you probably don't know his name, but when you see his face, you know him. He was Professor Stanley. Stephen King making a cameo. And also, aside from just the cast, the production of this is great too. George Romero directed it. Stephen King wrote it. You've got Tom Savini doing special effects. I mean, this movie is just sort of a who's who of genre and handcrafted, like a love letter to horror. It's really a love letter to horror, and I think that really comes through in every segment. So I'm going to take this kind of segment by segment. It's hard to talk about an anthology as an overall. So I'm going to give a synopsis of every segment and sort of my thoughts. So, of course, as with any anthology, we get a wraparound, and the wraparound can sort of make or break an anthology. A lot of times they're kind of weak. This wraparound is fantastic, pitch perfect. It features, I forgot to mention, Tom Atkins, horror royalty. Would love to meet that man before he's no longer with us. But anyway, so in the wraparound, the prologue introduces Billy, whose strict father throws away his beloved horror comic Creepshow. Furious but fascinated, Billy imagines the comic pages springing to life, leading into the anthology's stories. And Billy, for those of you who don't know, is played by a young Joe Hill, who is Stephen King's son. And now he is an author in his own right. So the first segment we get is Father's Day. Father's Day opens with a wealthy family gathering for their annual dinner. The family's history is dark. The tyrannical patriarch, Nathan Graham, was murdered years earlier by his long-suffering daughter, Bedelia, after years of abuse. Bedelia arrives at the estate and drunkenly visits her father's grave. Then, her father, Grantham, rises from the earth as a decaying corpse. Driven by rage and hunger, the reanimated corpse slaughters the gathered relatives one by one. In the chilling finale, he presents a grotesque Father's Day cake made from his daughter-in-law's severed head. So Father's Day to me is the perfect kickoff. It's classic spooky We've got an old graveyard. We've got zombies. It's fun, but still gruesome. You know, we get the I want my cake, Bedelia. Where's my cake, Bedelia? And I think that's one of those images that people know whether they have seen Creepshow or not. Also, we get Ed Harris, like a young Ed Harris. And there is a ridiculous scene of him and his wife dancing. And it's like the goofiest thing you've ever seen. It's right up there with Crispin Glover in Friday the 13th, the final chapter. So I think it's a great kickoff just because it sort of sets the tone for the whole movie. Fun, but gives us those classic elements.
Father's Day, and I got my cake. Happy Father's Day.
The next segment is The Lonesome Death of Geordie Verrill. And it stars Stephen King as Geordie, a dim-witted farmer who discovers a fallen meteorite on his land. Hoping to profit by selling it, he touches the meteor and becomes contaminated by a glowing green substance. Soon, plant-like growths begin to spread across his body, his house, and his land. Geordie is overtaken by the alien vegetation, begging for release before finally taking his own life. The story ends ominously with a forecast of rain, suggesting the alien plant life will spread unchecked. So, full disclosure, I used to not like this segment at all. I didn't think Stephen King was good in it. I thought it was way too goofy. I think I even used to skip this one sometimes. But I have to say, over the years, this segment has really grown on me. And last year, I invited a group of people over to watch it, and I asked them after we watched Creepshow, I said, what was your favorite segment? And there was one woman in particular who loved the Geordie Verrill segment. And she liked it because it was so goofy. And she was like, Stephen King was great. Like, he was perfect. And I had already come around on it. But hearing somebody else's take on it made me appreciate it a little bit more. And the really interesting thing about it, too, is that even though it is by far the goofiest one, it has the darkest ending. It takes such a turn. Like, you're really not sure what's going to happen here. I mean, this guy's clearly doomed, but I don't think we expect him to take his own life. And so that sort of crazy contrast really does work. And also, it is yet another Color Out of Space / Tommyknocker crossover, which I talked about earlier this year, how Color Out of Space popped up all over the place this year. And of course, I did a version of Color Out of Space. So if you like to go listen to that, go back a few episodes. The next one is Something to Tide You Over, which features a sadistic millionaire, Richard, who discovers his wife Becky's affair with Harry Wentworth. Pretending to be calm, Richard lures Harry to a secluded beach where he forces him at gunpoint to bury himself up to the neck in sand. Richard reveals he has done the same to Becky further down the beach, setting up cameras to record their final moments as the tide rolls in. Both lovers drown in terror. Later, Richard smugly reviews his tapes at home, but he is confronted by their bloated, seaweed-covered corpses returned from the grave for vengeance. This one is so much fun. To me, it feels like sort of a classic early Stephen King, like pulp crime story. Leslie Nielsen and Ted Danson are in this segment together, and they are such a great pair. And I think this is right before sort of both of them blew up, because Leslie Nielsen was sort of a dramatic actor, I think, before he did Airplane, and that movie really made him a superstar. And same, like Ted Danson, once he was in Cheers, he became a household name. And this is, I think, right before like I said, they both got really famous. So now watching it now, it's just sort of an unexpected setting to see them in. I also think this one has maybe the best soundtrack of all the segments. I love the entire soundtrack and I enjoy all the segments. But something about this one, it's got like haunted ocean vibes, but it still meshes with the overall soundtrack. And I just really enjoy it. The fashion and interior design in this set are off the charts. We've got lots of like velour leisure suits. Leslie Nielsen, Richard, is wearing just the greatest beach sweater at one point. The interior design is it's sort of like mid-century 80s contemporary. So it's a very specific look, but yeah, it's like, you know, a rich guy in the 80s. And you can tell, I think, a lot about this guy, the slime ball, from his weird house. Like, things are just not quite right in that house. And then, of course, there are video screens everywhere where he's been, you know, watching people. It's all you need to know. And also another interesting thing about this segment is you see him grab an ashtray at one point, and it's the same ashtray that Bedelia used to bash her father's head in the Father's Day segment. And then that ashtray continues to pop up, I think, in every segment. So that's sort of fun. And then that ashtray also showed up, I think, in the Creepshow series on Shudder. So just keep your eye out for the green marble ashtray. I also love, this one is really lit like a haunted house. We see the blue and the red lighting throughout the whole movie, but I think it is used to such great effect in this segment because his house, for the most part, is very sort of like neutral. It's eclectic, but there's a lot of neutral tones and such. And so once Harry and Becky show up as their seaweed zombie selves, that lighting really hits and the music hits, and it's great. And then, of course, I really love the end of this one when we see Richard, just his head under the water, and he says, "I can hold my breath for a long time." Love it. Love to see him get his comeuppance, and love that little last frame.
I can hold my breath for a long time.
The next segment is The Crate. The Crate follows a college janitor who discovers a mysterious wooden crate hidden beneath the stairs of a university building. Inside lurks a monstrous ape-like creature that has been sealed away since an Arctic expedition in 1834. The creature savagely devours the janitor and a graduate student, leaving Professor Dexter Stanley traumatized. Stanley confides in his friend, Professor Henry Northup, who sees the beast as a chance to rid himself of his overbearing wife, Wilma. Just call me Billy, everyone does. Henry lures her to the crate where the monster gruesomely consumes her. Afterward, Henry chains the crate shut and dumps it into the quarry, believing the nightmare is over, though the creature stirs ominously beneath the water. So the crate is the standout. The crate is the longest segment of this movie and the best, and it's beloved, and it is well earned. First of all, I have to say I love Wilma, Billy. She is such a vibe. She has, some great lines. She says, buying real estate in a college town is a friggin' pain in the ass. She's like trying to get these people a drink at this university party, and she's like, these people are dry. Like, she is just so obnoxious and so grating, but in the best way. Like, Adrienne Barbeau is carrying this movie on her shoulders, and her fashion, same. Like, her whole character is just pitch perfect. I really dig the sort of old, dusty university setting of this. You've got these mint green walls and this dirty, like, tan checked linoleum. It's all very sort of pastel pale, and it's the perfect backdrop to this bright red blood that eventually gets splattered onto everything. Similar to My Bloody Valentine is a very similar color palette, and it works there as well. I do wonder, like, what is this monster? I think it's supposed to be like a Yeti, but he's also like a mini Yeti. Like he fits in this crate. We don't need to know necessarily, but the Arctic expedition makes me feel like it's got to be like a Bigfoot, a Yeti. Not that matters. Anyway, I like the characters in this one in general. Like I said, Billy is great, but all of them really gel together. You've got the professor, the janitor, the overworked grad student, and one of the things I really like is how Professor Stanley is, he doesn't talk down to Mike the janitor. They're kind of like in this together, and he tells him when they go to open the crate, he's like, "Oh, be my guest, Mike. It's your find." Like he's sharing in this with him, and I like that a lot. I also love hysterical Professor Stanley. Like when he gets to Henry's house and he can't even like speak. He's trying to tell Henry what he saw, that he saw Mike the janitor to get killed by this monster, and his meltdown is so great. And also, so after that, so we get the intro to Billy, and that's great. We get all the gruesome stuff in the middle. We get hysterical Stanley. The setup is all great. And then we watch Henry go to the school, and we're not sure what's going to happen. And of course, it all comes back to Wilma, because Wilma she just nags Henry to death, and he's not a strong enough personality to ever stand up to her. But he decides he's just gonna feed her to the crate monster. And we get more great Billy moments. Like she is reading this letter that Henry has left her. She gets a glass of milk and pours like brandy into it or something, which is wild to me. And that's not even the wildest part. She takes it with her. She's drinking this milk while she's driving to the university. I mean, that's just such a weird character quirk, like character addition. She also like has her purse with her at all times. And there's this great moment where the soundtrack is hitting, and the soundtrack, there's like a beat where it ends right when she slams the door and her purse sort of like swings with it. And then she even still has her purse at the very end when the creature eats her. She still has that purse. And I'm definitely conflicted about her death, because like in the world of Creepshow, there's a lot of like revenge and people getting their comeuppance, and like she sort of has it coming, but like also, divorce exists. Henry is, while I like him, he's a little bit of a wet noodle. Like you could have stood up to her a long time ago. You could have divorced her. Like you didn't have to feed her to a crate monster. And so that feels a little bit But then also I think that makes the end really fitting, because in the very end, of course, we see the beast. He's floating down the water in the quarry, but he breaks out of the crate. And as Henry and Stanley are talking to each other, you can tell Stanley has this apprehension that it may not be over after all. And so seeing the monster break out of the crate gives us that feeling that, Wilma was terrible, but Henry might not be getting away with murder after all. So clearly I have the most notes about this one. I mean, this segment is classic. If you weren't going to watch anything else with Creepshow, it would have to be The Crate. The Crate is the quintessential Creepshow segment.
Oh, Henry, you are such a little kid. I swear to God you are. I mean, where would you be without me to take care of you?
But that leads us to the last segment, which is They're Creeping Up on You. And it concludes the anthology with the story of Upson Pratt, a wealthy germophobic businessman living in a sealed, sterile penthouse. During a blackout, his pristine apartment is overrun by cockroaches that infiltrate every crevice. Pratt panics as they multiply uncontrollably, swarming his food, walls, and eventually his body. When the lights return, he is discovered dead, his body bursting open to release thousands of roaches. So, They're Creeping Up on You has consistently been my least favorite segment in Creepshow. So I kind of don't like that we end on it. I sort of wish they would have switched They're Creeping Up on You and The Crate. But it is what it is. Part of the reason why it's my least favorite is because it is easily, Upson Pratt is easily the most unlikable character in the movie, and we spend so much time with him. I do think the performance and the message in this segment is good, but it's just not as much fun. Like this is the only segment that I think really has like something to say, like sociologically, in a movie that's largely just a fun, creature feature. This one feels maybe the most Romero to me, so I do like that about it. Just the sets and the feel of it feels very Romero to me. And it also, like, this one does not feel like it takes a departure from sort of the classic spooky elements. We're in a high-rise, we're in a high-rise penthouse. Everything is white. There's no furniture. And Upson Pratt is just, he is the quintessential awful, greedy businessman. Like, he's almost a caricature. Which fits, though. I will say that's not a criticism of his character. I think it fits in this sort of over-the-top anthology. I do love that at one point he says everybody's got the damn herpes these days. There are some, like, little gems, some ridiculous lines like that made me chuckle. But, this one is more clear-cut, though, as far as, like, there is no question that this man gets what he deserves. There's no moral gray area, questioning, I don't know how I feel about this or that or whatever. No question he gets what he deserves. He doesn't care about people. He has no art in his apartment. No art, no furniture. He only derives joy from money and winning, and we learn that from several phone calls with him throughout the night. He's obsessed with cleanliness. So, like, obviously he has some kind of weird, like, disorder and or fixation on top of just being a horrible person. So we don't feel sorry for him. Also, I will say, full circle, this does feel like it could be in the same world as Bachman's Running Man and Long Walk. He feels like he could be one of those TV executives in this dystopian world. Like, blackouts keep happening. And it seems like that's kind of a normal thing. So this city seems like it might not be the most functional place. It doesn't like feel like the 80s. It's hard to pinpoint where we are because everything is so sterile and indistinct. So even though this one is not my favorite, I will say the last scene that we get of he's in this little sealed room and you watch all these cockroaches come out of his body and just fill the room. That is a pretty striking last image. So they do leave us on a pretty creepy note.
Another son of a bitch in blackout. If it is my power company, this would never happen.
And then we come back to the wraparound. And the film ends with the return to Billy, who gleefully uses a voodoo doll ordered from the Creepshow comic to exact revenge on his father. So we get to see a little Joe Hill stabbing this voodoo doll and poor Tom Atkins being affected by it and being in pain. So in the end, this little child who loves scary things gets revenge on his dad. And it really puts a pin in the fun but dark tone of the whole movie. And I love it. We also get a little cameo from Tom Savini in the last wraparound segment, which is really fun. He finds the comic book that's been thrown in the garbage and is kind of flipping through it, and it's a goofy moment with a fellow garbage man. So that's just a great little addition as well.
I teach you to throw away my comic books. Ready for another shot, Dad?
So overall, like I said, Creepshow to me is just like such a great Halloween watch. It's one that you can share with normies, and I have found that most of my non-horror friends still have a good time with it. You know, there's always something to laugh at, something to make you squirm a little bit. This movie clearly was made by a bunch of really skilled folks who love horror, who love the genre, who were having a great time working together to make this movie. Like I said, it is unique in that it feels like Romero, and it feels like Stephen King, and it feels like Tom Savini. It really does feel like the three of those folks came together and created this thing that is uniquely them. Like, you could not recreate this movie. It feels 80s, but yet still feels kind of timeless because of all of the sort of classic horror elements that we get. It's just a great Halloween watch. You can watch it early in the year like I do, but you can save this one for Halloween night and, usher out the season on this really fun note. So, Creepshow, if you haven't seen it, I've spoiled a lot of it, but I think that's fine. I think you can still watch it and have a good time. And if it's been a while since you've seen it, I hope you will revisit it because, as I've said a couple of times now, I love anthology movies, and I think Creepshow is the best of them all. So if you like Creepshow and you want to check out similar stuff, of course, as usual, I have recommendations. First of all, Tales from the Crypt. Tales from the Crypt was, it's kind of like a lot of things inspiring each other. So Creepshow was inspired by EC Comics. Tales of the Crypt inspired by EC Comics, was probably inspired by Creepshow. And there's an old movie, Tales from the Crypt, which is good in its own right. But I'm talking about the 90s TV show. The episodes are hit or miss, but you've got that same pretty disturbing but goofy tone. The Crypt Keeper is fantastic, iconic character. Check out Tales from the Crypt. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which is a movie I love. I've loved it since I was a kid. Because when I was a kid, I didn't care that Michael Myers wasn't in it. I believe I watched it with my mom, and she was just like, "Oh, it's about these creepy masks, these like cursed masks." And I was like, "Oh, I was in. And of course, Tom Atkins. This is Tom Atkins' golden age. That movie is just so fun. Great Halloween watch. Just don't think about the fact that it's in the Halloween franchise. Just remove that from your brain. Go in, watch it as its own thing, and you'll have a good time. Another fantastic anthology is Trick or Treat from 2007. And Trick or Treat is so well made that it almost doesn't feel like an anthology. The wraparound story and the individual segments are so interconnected that they don't even seem really like an anthology. So, and again, Michael Dougherty made it. Clearly, the people who made this movie love Halloween, are having a blast. Brian Cox is in it. This is, of course, way, way, way before Succession and some of his other bigger roles. So it's worth it for his performance alone. So if you've not seen it, check out Trick or Treat. That's another great one for your last Halloween season viewing. And finally, I'm going to say The Fog, because John Carpenter was not involved in Creepshow, but there are definitely elements that feel a little Carpenter, and I think it's because Romero, Carpenter, Tom Savini, Stephen King. I mean, they were all contemporaries. They were all feeding off of each other. And so The Fog to me feels like it's of the same time as Creepshow, and The Fog is also, it's classic ghost story. You've got ghost pirates and haunted ships and seaside towns and curses, and also I just remembered Tom Atkins is in that too. So maybe you just watch all the Tom Atkins movies from the early 80s and you'll be like good to go. But yeah, The Fog, I think The Fog is kind of an underseen Carpenter movie. If you're a horror fan, I'm sure you've seen it, but everybody knows him from Halloween, but I think The Fog is kind of an underrated spooky gem. So that's all I have for you today. Thanks for tuning in for my October episode. As I mentioned before, I'll be taking a little break for the rest of the year. I would like to do a story time episode in December because I like to do a ghost story for Christmas time. So hopefully, I'll be able to throw that little bonus out there. Also, please check out Macabre Moods on YouTube for background music for all your spooky activities this month. I released one a couple weeks ago that is phantasm themed. So there's kind of a range of stuff. I have four or five episodes of that out. Again, you can find it on YouTube, Macabre Moods. Also, we have lots of spooky doings this month. We're all out there making it happen. If you are local to Northwest Arkansas, there is a horror film festival in Eureka Springs called Nightmare in the Ozarks. It's the 23rd to the 25th or something like that. I will be there. And so if you also happen to be at Nightmare in the Ozarks or at the Zombie Crawl that weekend, look me up. My listeners are kind of all over. Don't have a huge concentration of local listeners to my knowledge, but if you are going to be there, like shoot me, a DM on Instagram or something. And, I would love to connect. I really appreciate each and every one of you. I don't think I say it enough. But I hope that you all continue to make the most of this special and treasured season in our community. I hope you all enjoy your Halloween. And until next time, stay spooky.